Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Perspective with Viv podcast. My name is Viv, and this is the show. Today's title is Soul Evolution with Granddaughter Crow. Dr. Joy Gray, widely recognized by her spiritual name Granddaughter Crow, holds a doctorate in leadership and is a member of the Navajo Nation. Born into a lineage of indigenous spiritual leaders, she blends academic insights with ancestral wisdom, guiding people toward authentic self expression, nature rooted spirituality, and healing inherited trauma. As an award winning author of books such as Wisdom of the Natural World and Belief, Being, and Beyond, as well as Shamanism and Your Shadow, she shows how the natural world, mind, and soul can come together in powerful transformation. Hi, Granddaughter. Hi, Granddaughter Crow. Thank you for joining me on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Viv. I absolutely love the energy and the consciousness that you bring to the world, and I am
Thank
happy to
you.
share this space with you. Absolutely.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. So let's dive right into the questions. You have no idea how much intention I put into creating these questions. Like, I'm pretty sure our conversation is going to be super fun. So my
I
first question for you. You
yeah,
describe yourself as one foot in the modern world and one rooted in ancestral wisdom. How do you navigate that duality in your daily life?
absolutely. So I could go a lot of different directions with this, but what I'd like to delve into is all of our ancestors believed in animism, the natural world, that everything has a soul, that the trees are alive and the animals are our friends, and just feeling a part of being something. All of our ancestors believed that, where irregardless of where you were born on the globe. But in this modernized world, it really is like there's this idea that we're detached from everything, that this separateness, this feeling of loneliness, this feeling of do I belong, don't I belong? And so when I talk about bringing that ancestral wisdom, that's one of the aspects that I'm talking about, is to be your authenticity, to be yourself, to gain the wisdom that our ancestors knew, sitting in a tribe around a fire, communicating with each other and with the natural world. And that's something that is very deep. And I think that in the modern world, at least the one that I'm living in, really there's like such a separateness and a detachment from everything. So I try to bring people back to remembering who they are and that we are all a part of the natural world.
Thank you for that answer. Very beautiful. I truly understand what you mean by how we're connected to everything. And in this modern world, we have a lot of distractions to deter us from what we should be focusing on: nature, animals, water. Okay, nature, water is part of nature.
Right.
But yeah, the moon, my goodness. So I can't wait to dive deeper into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I like the whole concept of one foot in the modern world and one rooted in ancestral wisdom, because you talk about it's basically a balance. It's like you are infusing ancestral wisdom to be able to live in the modern world. You're creating an avenue and container for this wisdom to not be forgotten, which is what you use in helping other people to remember themselves and therefore ignite the remembrance of that ancestral wisdom that is locked within them, right?
Yeah. That's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head. And the thing is if when the modern world tells us that we are separate, that literally splits our psyche, that detaches our spirit, that makes us emotionally feel like lonely or vulnerable when we are not. And so the beauty is that if I can remind people of the beauty of just being human with the moon, like you said, and which I have right here, and then we can move in the world naturally and organically and not feel so separate. Know that we are sisters, we are brothers, we are family, and that the natural world supports us. I mean, let me give you an example. So, what I like to say is when you step outside and you see a bird, know that that bird saw you first and is allowing you to see it. It knows that you're there. The natural world is observing you just as much as you're observing the natural world. So just with the next time you see a bird, you're like, you knew I was here. And therein lies a sense of connection that our ancestors had that we forget about in the natural or in the modern time.
Thank you for sharing that. I especially love that whole would you say analogy or just observation that birds see you before you see them. I like it because sometimes I think we just focus on being the observer. We don't think about being observed. So having that realization that as you're existing, nature is also witnessing you exist is such a beautiful description of, I'd like to say, synergy. Thank you. Synergy as humans and nature.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. We're flowing on the same vibe here because when you then start, I mean, being an observer, we watch videos, screen time, we scroll, we're observing. And in that, we do find a lot of joy. But when we actually are being seen, it's a totally different acknowledgement to our spirit, to who we are as a human being. When we see each other, when we listen to each other, and then take that up a notch and go, oh, the natural world sees you too. It kind of brings this feeling of connectivity of that there is something that is bigger beyond our little consciousness that we are a part of. And it starts healing the soul. It starts healing your relationships. It starts healing any fractures of feeling separate or lonely. You're just like, my friends are birds. They said hello to me. They let me see them. These kinds of concepts. Yes.
Thank you. I totally agree. So, growing up on the Navajo Nation reservation and coming from a lineage of spiritual leaders, can you share a childhood moment that deeply shaped your spiritual path?
Mm. My father was Reverend Jackson Yazzie of the Navajo Nation, and I think that I can't think of one individual thing, but I can tell you that when I was sitting in the pews and watching him on the pulpit, preaching or sharing and connecting with people, I used to go home and I would put all of my teddy bears and stuffed animals down and I would sing to them and I would preach to them and I tell them you're loved and somebody's watching over you. And so it really was almost like it was so ingrained in me that it was like a game that, I mean, that's my play. A lot of kids will play other things. And that was the way that I was playing. And it was really kind of, this moment of understanding that, not understanding that when I was a kid, but when I was older and reflecting back on that. And I think that's a really fun point for your listeners. Think back to what did you like to play? What did you like to imagine when you were little? And how does that actually come out in what you love to do now?
That is so beautiful. Thank you. Because then you're talking about inner child healing and you're talking about remembering because we're going back. We're remembering what stood out to us or what we liked. And so when you're talking, I was thinking about mine and I was thinking about how when I was younger, I always pretended that I was making potions and I was like casting spells.
Natural. You're a natural. I love
Thank
it.
you. I used to all the time, and I used to play with soil and water and mix it with leaves and use sticks. I used to do that a lot. Then try and make like mud cakes or mud houses. And then sometimes I'll mix a lot of liquid together, different kind of like soaps and like conditioner. And I just imagined I was in the lab, you know? So
I
that's where
love it.
yes, that's why I wanted to be a scientist.
That's so perfect. It fits just perfectly. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I like the imagery of you having your teddy bears in a line and you preaching to them, dancing to them, singing to them. I think
Mhm.
it shows also as kids how we copy our caregivers. You know, we take aspects from them, and it's beautiful when you can take fragments of your spiritual path from a parent. You know, because you hold a piece of them, it opens up a door. It's like a key that opens up a door to a part of you that
Yeah.
it may open at that time and it closes due to life. And you'd have to remember that door again when you're trying to get to know yourself on a deeper level and to heal inner child wounds?
You are a poet and a philosopher. That was really well said. I love it. And
Thank you.
it also makes me think, Viv, that a lot of people have a very difficult time with their direct parents. And in that, and a difficult time forgiving them, or maybe there was trauma or something. And so sometimes in order to go back, we have to go to our grandparents or whatnot, but healing that wound of the trauma between you and your parents, there is a gift under there, and it is exactly what you're talking about. It opens a door to yourself and your self-expression, and even more like, "Oh, that's who I am. That's why I do that. I come from something. I come from someone."
Yes. Wow. You're so right. And that's the beautiful part about remembering. A lot of times people think that they're getting to know new aspects of themselves, but I think they're remembering and it just hits me now. So thank you for sharing that. Now I'd love to talk about your name. The imagery of the raven and crow plays into your name and practice. Spirit of the raven, spirit of the crow. What does that symbolism mean to you and how does it manifest in your work and everyday life?
I love it. So, in a lot of indigenous tribes in the United States, we really do talk about like animal spirit and your animal companion. And it basically is talking about what kind of animal do you imitate, or what is your soul like? And my soul is like a raven and a crow. So if you think about ravens and crows, the first thing is you see that they're like really dark with iridescent wings and everything. And in a way that's kind of spooky and off-putting to some, and yet it's mystical. And throughout my life, I'm very mystical. And a lot of people will be like, wow, that's so beautiful. And some people will be like, ooh, you're too scary. What are you? Why are you practicing shamanism? What is this? What is that? Are you a witch? And I'm like, yeah, maybe I am. And they're like, oh, that's scary. So it's this ability to be taboo, a character that's taboo, a raven, a crow, and embody that and know that I'm carrying a lot of wisdom. Another thing is I talk a lot, and so do ravens and crows.
I don't think so. I don't think you do.
I love it. I love it.
So, can I tell you something? Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. You see, the thing is, I've been seeing a lot of crows on TikTok, right? And crows and ravens are birds I'm very, very curious about. And I know a bit about crows. I know that if you save a crow, they remember you. And one thing I've always loved about crows, they tell each other about how good a person is. Remember what you
Yeah.
said about birds? They see you before you see them. They tell
Yeah.
each other about you, then they drop little gifts, little trinkets. Like, come on. And then ravens talk. I did not
Yes.
know that until recently. But it's
Yeah.
such a coincidence or synchronicity, actually, that I literally was learning a bit about crows and ravens just recently that
Yeah.
made me remember that I'm fascinated by them as birds. And I love that
Yeah.
they're black and, they also have like a scary connotation, but they are so majestic. They are so the sleek black, the
Mm.
beak, the way they have that communal operation. Oh, that's what I love about them. And
Yeah.
then you are, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Continue. I'm digging what you're saying. Yes. Dancing
and
a little.
and
Yeah.
I love that. And then you work in community, like you are deeply embedded in community. Community is
Yeah.
what made you, what shaped you. So that name is very befitting. Do you leave trinkets for people?
I absolutely love that question. I never really thought about it. I would say that maybe not physical trinkets, but I
Okay.
do leave like little words of positivity
I love
and
that.
compliments and genuine I see you compliments, which is me leaving little trinkets, little sparkly and shiny things.
Yeah, so true, so true. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Now let's talk
Mhm.
about your work, your mission and practice.
Yeah.
You hold a doctorate in leadership and also work deeply in intuitive and spiritual realms. How do you balance leadership theory and intuition? How do they intersect in your offerings?
Oh, wow. You did spend a lot of time on these
Thank you.
questions. I love it. I have never been asked that. I absolutely love it. There are different types of leaders, right? There are some that are like authoritarian. There are some that are, demonstrative, and they're really mean. And then there is another type of a leader. It's more of a category that I fall into, and it is called a servant leader. A servant leader is basically a leader who leads from below, lifting the people. It is, if we did right, it's on you guys. You guys made it right. If we do wrong, that's my fault. It's very much like lifting people up instead of making them lift me up. It's, I'm lifting you up. And so in that form of leadership, that is the same exact thing that I do as a spiritual worker. I lift people up. When they do well, I'm like, you did a good job. When they're struggling, I'm like, let's try to figure it out. It's not all on you. Let's figure out, what do we need to do now? So to me, it flows really, really, together. The funny thing is that, how life goes, and you get opportunities, or you have curiosities, and you follow certain paths. Well, I went to school and I loved it so much I just kept going. And then by the time I got to my doctorate program, I'm like, I want leadership. I don't know. It just sounded right to my intuition. And then all of a sudden, in hindsight, as an older person now, I look back and go, wait, I was raised by spiritual leaders. And then I studied leadership. There is a divine pattern flowing through my life that I did not recognize when I was younger, but I followed my curiosity, I followed my gut, I followed my intuition, what I was curious about. Here's a little crow treasure for your listening audience. Curiosity is your internal compass to lead you to your authenticity. So follow what makes you curious. Learn. If you're like, ooh, I want to learn about stones. I want to learn about, potions, the tarot deck. I want to learn about science. Whatever it is, follow that, because it's almost like an internal compass. Your curiosity is. And then it leads you to your authenticity, which leads you home to yourself, to your own expression. And so for me, it goes hand in hand that the best leaders are the ones that follow their intuition, their curiosity, their gut check, that it's not just about following a playbook or a bunch of rules. Yes, you have to do that as a leader, but it's also about, your gut will tell you, that people need to celebrate now, or people want you to offer them healing prayer, or people right now, it's kind of like a leader that is able to lead like that is actually what I think our ancestors did to a certain degree before money and buildings and commercial this and, all of that, where we're selling things. When we used to be back in a situation, the chief or the chieftain would lead, they would be there watching over the tribe and not going, you guys need to do this and you need to do that, and it's all about me, give me all your stuff. It's more about, what does the tribe need? And so there's a lot of intuition, a lot of connectivity and responsibility for those in your community to make sure that they are taken care of, or taking care of each other. So beautiful question. Yeah, I just went to this around the moon and came back. That was a great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for your answer. It got me thinking as well. I've always loved leadership, theory. I didn't know that was the name I would give it. And I say that because obviously, when you're working in a capitalist society, you're going to have different types of leaders. And I've always found that maybe I in the past, I found myself under certain leaderships that didn't agree with me, in which it felt like I was more of a leader than they were, despite me being in the subordinate position. But it got me thinking about back in school, and this is still on the concept of remembering yourself. So back in secondary school, I was like to say like I was like 15, 16, maybe. My intuition was very loud then, but my trust in it was very low. So rather than lead, my intuition, in fact, yes, my intuition, my inner mind is very much assertive, direct, and taking charge. You know what I'm saying? I'll give an example. Two things. There's a particular time when we had this particular issue between us as prefects, and the route that the majority was going to take was to cover it up. My intuition screamed in that moment and said, "What do you mean? We're covering it up. Why? We should be responsible. That's corruption." But because now I feel and I'm more aware, growing up, when that side showed up, everyone would cower and be scared and shrink. So subconsciously, I don't let that side show because honestly, that side is a star and I've never seen that side out before. Luckily, I do feel like she's coming out. Okay. I do feel like, okay, let me not say coming out because language. I do feel she's here and we're in conversation. But that just brought it to me that my leadership is very direct, assertive, but very intuitively led. The words come out, the directions come. It's all about me trusting to take it. So I like how you described yours, and I just wanted to relay mine.
I love that. And you know what? There is a saying, I forgot who said it, maybe Mother Teresa. It basically is that we are more afraid of our own power than
Ooh,
we are afraid of our weakness. So, because what will happen when we truly become who we are?
ooh,
It's
a
and
word.
so yeah, and so it's okay to be intimidated. You know you're getting closer and closer to your authenticity if you're kind of like, "Wow, I'm scared of this. What if it doesn't come out right?" But at the end of the day, that's a gift, and the people need those straight directions. Sometimes people will just kind of follow along, and they need somebody to go say something really smart and poignant, and it kinda wakes them back up instead of just following along. So, yes, I love it, Viv. I love it.
Thank you. I love that we're really on the same page. Like from the get go, we've been seeing each other eye to eye, third eye to third eye.
What's the third eye?
So, my next question. Your promise is to inspire, encourage, and empower others to be their authentic selves. This is my favorite part. What is the biggest obstacle you see people facing in achieving authentic expression?
Um, what I will call the program that tells you that you're not enough, the voices that say that you need to be different than who you are, the strong almost dogma coming on us that says that we're supposed to be something different. We're supposed to be controllable, we're supposed to be this or that. I think that that's and I call it a program because I don't think we were born with that. I think that that's something that we were taught through society, irregardless of what society you're living in. There may be some sort of a dogma that says if you read tarot cards, then you're out, or if you follow your intuition, then you're crazy. Those are the programs that I try to assist people in finding in themselves, and then they can change their own narrative to be what it is that is more authentic to them. So I think one of the hardest things is deprogramming somebody who has been programmed to believe that they are supposed to be something different than who they actually are. And I'll just drive it home. What if I am a raven and a crow, but everybody tells me I'm supposed to be an eagle, right? I you know, I would not know how to do that. I don't fly as high as an eagle. I don't do the same things. I have different attributes, but if I'm sitting around trying to convince that I'm supposed to be an eagle, then I can never be my authentic self. So, when I come in and I help people go, "Oh, you don't have to be an eagle. Let's find out who you are." and they begin to emerge. They start giving us all of these wonderful magical treasures that
Wow.
they've always had. And so the reason why I work with the natural world on that is because the natural world doesn't have humanized concepts of I'm not good enough. I'm ashamed of myself. If you go out to a tree and you look at the tree and you go, tree, what gave you the right to be so tall? Why do you think that you get to be, it's just silly. The tree is like, I'm just a tree. If you
Yeah.
go to a rose bush that has thorns or anything that has thorns, and you go, you should be ashamed of your thorns. They hurt people. The rose bush isn't going to be like, oh, sorry, I'll drop my thorn. Because, there's
Yeah.
no programming. And so when I come
Wow.
back into the natural world, it's like, be a rose bush, be a tree. Don't be ashamed of being too big. Don't be ashamed of having thorns. When you are yourself, the natural world teaches us that that's exactly who we're supposed to be. And then when we get together, it is dynamic, and we've got ravens and crows and eagles and owls and rose bushes, and we all get to come together and not be the same. We all get to be authentic. And then there's a balance in that.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that answer. Thank you. So many. Ooh, I'm still on you saying that the natural world doesn't have the program. The natural world just exists. And yes, I'm not going to lie to you. During in my 20s, I was a full-time artist and my work was centered around the self and identity. And I was always fighting against the system. I was always fighting against labels, how you should be. What is should when it comes to identity? Who decided that there's a should of how we should be? Don't be too loud as a woman. Don't be too bossy. Don't be too this. Don't be too that. And I think I've always had this strong conviction that who I am is just perfect. I don't know where it came from, but I've always had it. And that's why when people call me weird or strange, or I never feel hurt, I'm like, you guys don't know that this is so fun to be yourself. And now that I'm a full-time adult, it's like, that's my quality. Like, that's what makes me stand out. That I've always been strongly myself. So now it's more of what's the right word? It's more of a gift, I would like to say, even though that's not the word I was looking for, because it's showing that despite having like naysayers, using the word loosely, despite having those kind of people around to try and, make you shrink a bit and, dim your light, I still always shone because I knew who I was deep down and I was always happy with who I was. Like, I have always been happy with who I am. So it's now on a larger level. It's like people that knew me in the past could say, oh, wow, she always did have this. But now seeing her, it's like she's more embodied in it. And I love that about me. It's not because they're seeing that. It's more of I'm seeing that in myself because I'm relating to them now, people from the past, because I'm like, oh, wow, look at me wearing the same skin that I was wearing back in the day, just more polished.
I love that. And a couple of things. A lot of times people try to tear down authentic people because they are not giving themselves permission to be their authenticity. So
Thank
what
you.
gives you the right
The
to be authentic?
right. Thank you.
And
And that's
so
where
they get
boundaries come
they get
in.
mad. Yeah. So they get mad at that. But I mean, the beauty around you being authentic to me is you are giving those around you permission to show up as themselves
Yeah. Yeah.
with you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. And that's why they say being yourself is healing for other people. Because I can tell you, okay, social media helps in certain ways. I've always projected that happy go lucky, wonderful energy kind of person into my stories. You know what I'm saying? I'm always freely expressive, minding my business, keeping my energy protected, but sharing it freely and happy because I'm living my life. And it's just recently that I've started to have feedback on, oh my goodness, I always look forward to watching your stories. I've always just said at the back of my mind that I'm quite entertaining. You know what I'm saying? For somebody that's just living a normal life. But like having somebody come up to me and be like, I look forward to your stories, it makes me want to go out and live.
Yes. I love that. And then it just builds and that energy gets contagious. And oh, I love it. I absolutely
Yes.
love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, in your experience, why do so many people fear being their authentic selves, even on a spiritual journey?
I think this is kind of where we go into talking a little bit about the shadow and the shadow side of ourself. If I
Yes.
can go there, that would be great.
I've been looking forward to this conversation.
So, the best way that I can break it down, and it's kind of like the shadow is taboo, and so are crows and ravens, which is what I am. So I am comfortable with being taboo, but it's so taboo. So, you know, you look at the shadow side, and as defined by Carl Jung and his conversations with Freud, and how they kind of psychology goes into like the id and the super ego and the ego, and the shadow is something that's hidden or pushed down. And that's what Freud says. No, 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 you need to hide that shadow. And then Carl Jung comes along and he's like, no, but there might be treasures in there. There might be treasures in that shadow. And so, we get kind of scared because it's the part of us that we have hidden, and sometimes not just hidden from others. Sometimes people can see my shadow. Sometimes I'm just hiding my shadow from myself, because I was shamed. And back to the program, back to that program that we were just talking about, that people tell you you're not good enough. And so then you hide those aspects of yourself. And there's so many jewels in there. So, what I'd like to give is to make it less taboo for your listening audience. Whatever, when you were a kid, think about something that you love to do and you were shamed. Like maybe you sang, you love to skip around and sing. Maybe you drew with your left hand. Maybe you were an artist and they told you to settle down. Maybe you were a dreamer and they told you to focus.
Hmm.
Those, for a child, that shame pushes a lot of those beautiful, authentic attributes to the shadow, and then we ignore them, we wanna hide them. But what if, and then they become, those aspects are hidden, but they're still alive, and then they're getting mad, right? They're like, "How come I can't dance, and how come I'm too sing," they get an attitude, and so when they first come out, they're very defensive. Like, I have the right to be here too, and I'm upset about this and that. And then if you talk to your shadow and just go, you know what? I'm not here to discipline you. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to listen to your story. Your shadow side, that side of you that sang really loud and was shamed, painted, was a dreamer, maybe wrote with your left hand when they wanted you to write with your right hand. All of that, there's gifts in there. There's, all of a sudden you embrace your shadow and you're like, but you can be that for me now. And I love you now. And I'm not ashamed of you now. So a lot of, I mean, Viv, we could talk about shadow work and do a whole series that lasts a long time. But at the crux of it, it's basically like the parts of you that were shamed because society's program did not accept you or wanted to control you because you were a little too much. That is what lands in your shadow. And when you start embracing that, all of a sudden, all of your gifts come out, and it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. So that's it in a nutshell. What do you think about that?
Thank you for asking me. First of all, thank you for your answer, because shadow work is just a lovely topic. I love to talk about it. And yes, I do agree that it's a taboo. And I do think I'm a taboo as well. Are you into astrology?
Oh, yeah, big time.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm a Scorpio stellium in my first house. I have a Scorpio rising.
So do
And
I.
really, where? In your first house?
I have Scorpio rising. Yes, in my first house.
Hi, hi. Wow, is that why we have a lot in common? I've really
Yeah.
been feeling the vibe.
I know, because we're all then aligned. Taurus in the second, we have the Leo
Yes,
in the midheaven. We're on the
yes.
same.
Wow, really?
I've
I
got
love
chills.
that. I love
I've got
that so
chills.
much. Out of all my placements, is the one I'm most proud of. Wow. Hi, hello.
Hi,
Nice to meet
hello.
you.
I see you. My
I
third
see
eye
it too.
sees you.
Then I
Oh,
did that. Wow. Okay, so I have a Scorpio rising. I have Jupiter in Scorpio. I have Pluto in Scorpio. And right. And genuinely, it's my first house. So the Scorpio, the sign of taboo, the sign of shadow, intensity, sexuality, sensuality, things that people don't like to question, they don't like to probe into. That is my identity. That is why, you know what I'm saying? Oh gosh, I could go on. Like, okay, I'm in Nigerian culture. I have a Muslim Islamic background, but I do tarot readings. I'm doing tarot reading in an African environment. You know what I'm saying? That sees those things as taboo. And yet I'm so drawn, like you said, curiosity. I've always been so curious about the mystical, the metaphysical, things that were just otherworldly. And that
yeah,
curiosity I knew was innate and I knew meant that it was taking me to the direction I was meant to be, because you're not just born with certain cravings or certain
right.
curiosities. It's puzzle pieces. It's leading you to onto the path of remembering. Everything is just leading us back to ourselves. Yes. So shadow work. Shadow work is just another example of engaging in things that society or even family has labeled as taboo. For example, when we talked about what parts of you were ashamed when you were younger, I could list a lot. And what I love is that this podcast is really for shadow work. So let's get in and let's use me as an example. Thank you. So I was ashamed. I wanted to be a musician growing up. It was my first dream. And I remember that it was diminished. And I wouldn't take it personally now, because obviously you grow up and you see that people say things, they don't say it in a way that sits well. So it's kind of triggers something in you. Because that dream of being a musician didn't seem like it was something that people were going to invest in or, grow or nurture. I stopped listening to music. I'm 31 years old. I find it so hard to listen to music. I find it so hard to sit down with an album. Whereas when I was a child, I had a Walkman. I even had a cassette player. My mom used to buy me all sorts of CDs and I could listen to all sorts of songs. Also, now I can't. Now I limit and restrict what I listen to. It's basically almost the same songs over and over, which I was saying to myself that I really dislike. Like I'm no longer diving into albums and hearing music. Like I just lost it. So that's one thing. Another thing that I was shameful was just being weird, very expressive, very joyful, very bubbly. You get what I'm saying? But one thing that I do love is that I never lost it. In fact, yes, I would dim it around people that got irritated, but now I inflate my energy even more when I get that energy. When I get that vibe from people. What's another
Mhm.
thing? Okay, I used to get shamed for watching old movies like Clark Gable, Marilyn Monroe. I used to get shamed for doing that. And you know what I love as I'm naming all of these things? I love that I continue to love these things and continue to engage with these things. These are not things that I've kept of, no, apart from the music. The music is a deep rooted one. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? I
yeah.
remember that as a child, when I used to hear music, like let's say we were in the mall, I'd feel like crying and I wouldn't know why. I wouldn't know why. Yes. Oh gosh. So that music one, yeah, it's nice that I said that. I didn't even know that I was going to say it, but it's nice that I said that. So let's see where it goes from here. So those are three things that I used to be shamed for growing up, right? But what is shadow work? Shadow work is looking at those things and asking yourself why your perspective of those things is that way. And that way is a way that doesn't make you feel good. Where did it come from? What was the root? And how can we pull it out and transmute it to something better? So that's shadow work. And I like that I said it's parts of us that we're ashamed of. Yes. I mean, come on. When we were younger, we were teenagers, I'm sure there were so many humiliating things that we did in the past. But the beauty is like I've grown, I've evolved past that part of me. I don't shame that part of me. I accept it because now my present is better because I'm using the wisdom from the past.
Yes. Well said. Look at
Thank
you. I
you.
feel like I'm looking in a mirror. I love it because I'm exactly with you. And it's beautiful because there was one thing that you said that really hit home that I want to call out and highlight for your listeners is the idea of not taking it personally. Sometimes when you go in and you start doing your shadow work and you start like realizing, wait, oh, well, I got shamed for this or I felt like that and the reason why you feel so much shame is because it felt personal. But then when you look out and go, oh, but this was the family unit. This was the time of the society. this is because it wasn't accepted for a female or for a male or for whatever, and when you start realizing that it was them, not you, that they were actually maybe even trying to love you and protect you by telling you don't make a fool of yourself because it's not accepted. So it's not personal, a lot of it. And I think that's one of the keys to doing shadow work. And I love that you called that out. Now I have to rewrite my shadow book and add that, Viv.
I would love that. That's so funny. Can I tell you something? I
Sure.
think we may have to do two parts of this episode. Do you know why? I have
Right.
so many more questions, but the conversation is flowing so well that I'm not sure we're going to cover everything. So
Mhm.
whenever you'd love to, I'd love to have you back again for a part two because
Ab
this is going really well. Right? Thank you so much.
Yes, I just looked at the time. I thought we were talking for like 20 minutes, and we've been talking for
Same, same. That is exactly how I felt. I was like, I didn't know that much time had passed.
I love it.
I
I'm
love it too.
definitely down for a part 2. I'm
Okay, thank you so
definitely
much.
down for that.
Yes, because the vibe is vibey. So, okay, let's continue. Now, I
Okay.
love that you were talking about family shaping your sense of self or your perspective of certain things that have to do with self because I'm not taking it personally. That's a very good one because my next question says, how can someone tell when their expression is truly authentic versus when it's shaped by trauma, culture, or ego?
That's a great question, and I actually have an answer to that I have been practicing for probably the last 20 years, and it's this practice of taking a few deep breaths and just kind of going, "This is me. This is my expression. This is," whatever it is on the table. Like, maybe it's that I want to be a singer or that I am, just really, an artist or whatever it is. And in order to figure out if it's actually what I do is I imagine that I was born 200 years before on the other side of the globe. Would I still feel that way? Would I still want to sing? Would I still be funny? Would I still want to talk to people and help them to be authentic? My answers are yes, because that is my soul coming forth. How I do that depends on what century I was born in and all of that. But if the answer is no, then, like I have to make this much money and I have to make sure that, I do this and that and the shoulds. And then I go, wait, that wouldn't apply 200 years ago on the other side of the planet. So that's when I can figure out if I'm being authentic or if it's a program. That's my trick. What do you think about that?
Thank you for asking me. Honestly, I think what you said makes so much sense, and I align with that because your soul is timeless. You're just born into this particular body with this
Yeah.
particular life. And when you're able to tune in, and it's really about tuning in because as we said, your soul is being inhabited, or your soul is inhabiting this body. That is what you've been carrying with, or that's what who you've been. Thank you. That's who you've been from the
Yeah.
beginning of time. So outside of culture, outside of who you are now, by
Mhm.
tuning in and asking yourself those questions, you'll be able to see whether or not you've been influenced by current society or cultural background. And
Yes.
it's an important way to remember. It's an important part of remembering yourself, being able to tune in and know who is who you really are and what is something that you picked up from somebody else.
Yes. That's exactly it. Things that you've picked up from other people or were shaped or influenced because of the time that you were born and the society and the family and the culture and all of that. Yeah. We're still flowing.
Yes,
I know.
we are. I love that.
We're
Now, what has been your own most profound moment of reclaiming your authentic voice?
Mm. It's funny because 20 years ago, I went to an astrologer and she looked at my chart and she said, "Why is your voice blocked?
Hmm.
Your your voice your voice is blocked, and you need to heal your voice and your throat chakra, because by the time in 7 years, you're gonna be making money on your voice.
Wow.
And it was really profound to me because there was a lot of things in my life that made me feel safer to be quiet, safer to not speak. And one of the reasons why I felt safer not to speak is because my authenticity came out and people would be like, "You're too deep. You're too much. Why do you look at the world so deeply?"
Oh
And
my
I would get
goodness.
people looking at me and I wouldn't belong, so I just started keeping my deep thoughts to myself.
Mm.
And so then when I started exercising my own voice, it really I left corporate America. I was working in business. I left and I opened up major consulting doing business as Granddaughter Crow. And the fact that now I can talk not only frees my voice, it's amazing because the little stories that I hear of maybe something I said that helped somebody else,
Mm.
that's the most beautiful thing. So my voice is mine, which is great and it is profound, but when it is actually something that my voice helps someone else, I think that that is the most profound for me.
Thank you for sharing that. And I must say that's a beautiful story because the realization that your throat is blocked and you're keeping things in, and then when you try, people start to like be like, oh, you're too vulnerable, oh, you're too deep, oh, you're too sensitive. It's a real paradox because on one hand you want to unblock your throat, but on the other hand you don't want to scare people away. But when you when you
Mhm.
realize that the power behind your voice, you're like, you don't care. And I'll use myself as an example. Okay, I'll start with photography. When I was doing photography, oh my goodness, it just came out of nowhere. Me doing photography and me being a self-portrait artist. All of these things were just puzzle pieces. But one of the series that I did was called Red. And the whole concept was I'm wearing skin that isn't mine. It's stuffy. I'm going to remove it. And I don't care about what society has to say. So I was wearing a red plaid shirt and I removed it in like sequences, you know. And when I finally removed it, I was wearing all black, but I had like red streaks on my body just for emphasis. And it was more like I love my own skin. And I remember I said words. I said this in Yoruba, Oto Jometa, which means long time no see to myself. Yes.
You're gonna make me cry. Oh my god, I love this. Long time no see. I remember you. Yes.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So that was how things were for me when I was doing photography. I was very deep, and it was only people that were very deep that could connect. I was so deep, and you know, I first started off how much I was so into music was that my first form of writing was songs. And the only reason why I stopped writing songs was because I wanted to shift to poetry so I could learn to be a better lyricist. I could write songs like they were channeled pages of songs. They just came. I could write them without even thinking. And I just said, okay, let me just shift to poetry. Let me learn how to rhyme better. Then all of a sudden I said, okay, let me shift to short stories. And that's where I stayed. And I did write a song again. I haven't written a song since said I'm going to shift to poetry. That was like when I was 16, 17, which is crazy because I started writing songs from when I was 7. So that's something that we're realizing on this episode is so crazy. Anyway, so that was one part. That's how I got into writing. So when I got into writing, oh my goodness, I was increasingly vulnerable, like deep inside. And look at, okay, let's use Instagram, for example. I'm Nigerian. So a lot of people are not very vulnerable online. You know, it's a society thing. It's a cultural thing. It's about privacy. It's about not inviting evil eye, all of that. But I'm an artist, I'm expressive. So of course I'm going to express myself on an Instagram post. In fact, I think it's the most romantic thing to do for myself when I'm talking about my journey. You know what I'm saying? So that's coupled up with stories that I wrote that were truly deep that people didn't want to look at because it involved them engaging in shadow work while reading. Made me feel like, oh, should I just stop writing? Every time I write, it's like you're staring deep into my soul. Oh my gosh, what should I do? So yeah, that's my perspective.
I absolutely love that because I've authored a few books and I've got a few more coming out and I'm still writing, but it is the process as an author, as a writer, whether you're writing whatever you're writing, poetry, songs, short stories, books, it if you're really going to you're not just gonna be relaying information, you have to have a vibration that is vulnerable in order for
Mm.
people to feel comfortable with you, you know? And so, yeah, I have been very vulnerable in a lot of my books, and the more that I write, the more vulnerable I'm becoming. And it's beautiful because just like you said, I haven't seen me in a while, you know, or how you put that. It's like, welcome home. I remember you. Yes.
So true. Yes, I totally agree. Honestly, such a beautiful journey.
Mhm.
So your work often speaks to healing and remembering who you are, which I love that we've been talking about in different ways. In your
Mhm.
view, what's the difference between healing and remembering?
So it's almost like I love it. You know, one of the things that you are bringing up a couple times, just very lightly, is pieces of a puzzle. And so I'll reflect on that.
Okay.
Healing would be a piece of a puzzle that is kind of broken, or maybe it's peeled back, or healing would be making that piece of the puzzle okay. Remembering is putting that piece of a puzzle connected to other pieces, which in fact it does heal, but remembering actually connects. What do you think about that?
Wow. Wow, you stunned me with that one. Oh my God. Whoa, wait.
You're the one who brought up puzzle pieces.
Oh my goodness. Wow, you don't even understand how when you were talking, the way it just clicked in my head was like two puzzle pieces coming together. Wow, that is what remembering is. My goodness. Now you're going to make me cry as well. What?
I know.
I
What
didn't.
is going on?
Oh,
I know.
wow. Wow. So as you heal, okay, you know what? I have to use myself as an example again. This is so beautiful. Oh
Yes,
my
please.
goodness. Oh gosh, I'm quite emotional. Okay, hold on. So, okay. So I'm someone who, the way, okay, how do I say this directly? I created my podcast as a space for my authentic self to thrive, right?
Mm,
I also gave my authentic self, not the self that I show outside, the name Viv, right? And for me, it represents so many things as a name. Viv represents me being strongly rooted in who I truly am
mm,
outside of my past, outside of experiences I experienced as a child, experiences I had as a child, experiences of pain, outside of family, outside of culture. Viv is just Viv. She has no ties to things that define those labels that say, you are this, you are that, you are this, you have this family, you have this. No, I have my real name for that. So Viv doesn't need to carry all of that. She can use the stories, but she doesn't need to carry that. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. So who is Viv? Viv has a podcast. Viv is a public speaker. Viv has this space where she dives deep with people from different parts of the world, right? So recently I went for an event. It was a wedding. And it was a wedding in which I saw friends from that part of my life. Those friends that would say that name that people don't call me anymore because I've diluted my life from that space to be in a space where Fida is more prominent. And Viv, if you know who she really is, you know what I'm saying?
I do.
So when I met them, right, I haven't seen them in like 15, 16 years because after school, I didn't keep in touch because I didn't feel perspective. I didn't feel that was important enough for people to want to keep in touch with. I didn't feel
Mhm.
I was important enough for people to want to maintain friendships with. I didn't feel I'd made enough impact for me to even be special. I could just continue on my own. I've always been a loner anyway. You know what I'm saying? So it didn't really click with me that anybody would be missing me. So I continued to live my life, and then I came to this wedding at this age. When I met them and I started to like reunite and all of that, we started to talk, we're reminiscing and all of that. One thing, a few things came up to me, or a few things were said to me. One of my best friends at the time, before we stopped being best friends, he was a guy. He said that I haven't changed. Now, Granddaughter Crow, imagine you've changed your name how many times? You've gone through so much. You're 31 years old. The last time you guys possibly really saw was when you were 16. But they're saying that you haven't changed.
Wow.
You know, you still have the same mannerisms. You still do this. You still act the same way. You still have the same sense of humor. You still have a good heart. And then, okay, so that was the first layer. And when I was told that I haven't changed, I didn't feel disappointed. All I said was that, wow, you would think that all the things that I've been through, all the growth that I've experienced has changed me. But people that saw me in my raw form can still see my raw form.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They're still like, I see you. I recognize you.
Yes.
You can change your clothes.
Yeah.
You can do
Exactly.
what.
Despite the padding. Thank you so much. That's exactly what came to mind. I was like, wow, you guys can
Yeah.
still see me. So that was the first layer. The second layer
Mhm.
was when that same friend came and told me words that I didn't expect to hear. They said that I was always so kind to them in school, that I was always there for them and were there for them during a time that they didn't have many people and it was a dark time for them. That was new information for me. That was new information, especially considering that the friendship in my head ended because I wasn't being valued. I wasn't being seen. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
here, all of a sudden, you can imagine the emotions. All of a sudden, that same person that has always been a sensitive topic based on how you thought the friendship was, comes to you and says, you were always there for me. You're always so kind. You're always this person. Please, let's keep in touch. And you're like, I never knew this, you know?
Mm.
Okay. Third thing. Then that was him. Then there were the girls. The girls, it was like we hadn't stopped. There was no time that had passed. There's this familiarity or with comfort levels and physical spaces that we tend to have with people that we've shared space with before, even if it was years ago. There was that
Mhm.
still same familiarity when we were hanging out in the hotel room, when we were talking. It was like there was this remembrance of how it was when we were kids. And I remember that the ladies were so sweet to me. And I found that, not that I was expecting them to be mean, but it was just a bit like sweeter. That was very, no, warm. That I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you guys are really doing this. They're like, yeah, of course. He always had a good heart back in school. And I remember going to a corner to cry because this was a part of me that I just forgot about. Like, I didn't even, you know, but that puzzle piece came into the puzzle that weekend, that evening. And it's like I became a whole new woman after that event because I remembered.
Yes. And it speechless, mic drop, beautiful.
Thank you.
This is
Thank you.
so inspiring because, in this conversation, I hope that we are encouraging any listener to continue with their curiosity and to continue to heal and remember and that life will bring you different times where you can heal, opportunities to reconnect, to remember. It's just beautiful. Woo.
Thank you. Wow. That story itself, even telling it really
Yeah.
ties in to you, what you said about healing and remembering. That was so profound. So thank you for giving me this space to actually dive deep into myself in this conversation, to remember things I didn't know that were just standing there waiting to be acknowledged. Oh my goodness. This is
I
so
know.
healing.
I know. I love it.
I love it
I
too.
could talk
And
I could talk to
sorry,
you all day. Yeah.
same here. Oh my goodness. That's why I'm looking forward to our second part. Like, this has been such a treat. And I have one more question for you. But before I tell you the question, I'm going to give you a sneak peek into what we're going to talk about next time. We're going to talk about the natural world. We're going to
Yeah.
talk about your books, shamanism, and healing ancestral trauma. And I cannot wait. I didn't know how many questions I had. Usually, everything is synchronistic. I usually always make sure that I type out questions that sort of fall within 40 minutes, 35 minutes, you know. But this time I was just writing questions. I did not care about the time. I didn't know I didn't care about the time, but I was like, I have so many questions to ask. I have to write all of this down.
I
So
love
I'm
it.
really happy. I'm really, really happy with our conversation. Now, piggybacking off my story where I was speaking about community, what role do you believe community and lineage play in modern spiritual journeys, especially for people who may feel disconnected from cultural or ancestral roots?
Mhm. This is a very, very profound question, and I'm really glad that you're bringing it up because there used to be a time back in history where, cultures and tribes, they would formulate and all of this, and they would have their traditions, and everybody had a role, and that was community. And now we don't live in that world anymore. There are remnants of that world. There are remnants. If you go around the globe, you'll find very strong cultural understanding, but yet the children from those cultures are also changing and growing. And so what I kind of think about is that the tribe and community now is more of a soul tribe, a more of a spiritual tribe, and less of a ancestral tribe. The reason why I'm saying this, and sneak peek, Viv, I think this is the first time I'm saying this on the air.
Oh my.
I have been commissioned to write a book about shamanism for beginners. And that will come out at the end of 2026, 2027. So I was writing about shaman and what is a shaman? And I said, well, it's the medicine person, it's the healer of the tribe. And then the question became, well, what if I don't have a tribe? And so I had to think about the shaman without a tribe. The shaman
Wow.
without a tribe. And then I started looking around, and I'm Gen X. I'm like 55 years old at this point. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, most of our children are people without a tribe, but yet they find their tribe, their soul tribe, and their spiritual tribe. Sometimes you can find it within your culture, within your lineage, within your ancestors, but sometimes that holds so much trauma where you need the tribe in order to, work with the trauma. So you have to find your soul tribe. And for me, you definitely are my little sister because it's just like, we're tribe. We're dancing in the same rhythm, we're seeing things, we're painting, we're playing, and we're on like this is a song. I mean, this is beautiful. And so
Oh, I love
so
that.
basically I would say that, a lot of people are healers without a tribe, healers without a community. And you don't have to necessarily find your community in your culture. Sometimes you find your community on Instagram.
Oh,
Seriously. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Wow. Profound. Thank you. Yes, I totally agree. And I'll tell you why. I've always been somebody that is very soul focused to the point where I didn't really take in material things, you know, although now there's more of a balance, but soul tribes are so powerful because most of the time you find that healers are not really in their community. Like they're part of the community, but they're not really embedded in it. They're most likely supposed to go out and find like minds, like hearts to come together to form their own community. Most times, I feel from my perspective, they aren't born into a community that has the space to contain their gifts, to nurture it, to encourage it. So it's more like they're ostracized, even if it's subtly. So they go out, and that's what makes them seek community. That's what makes them, try to find people that match their energy. So I understand that. And I feel as though for me, I have Chiron in my 11th house.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of find it so hard and have always found it so hard to feel like I belonged. So that's why I
Mm.
have this very strong sense of belonging within myself, like even to a fault, because it's like, I've done so well this whole time. Are you really sure that I need a community? Are you really sure that I need friends? But I'm not going to lie to you. I moved back to Nigeria last year, and in England, it's very individualistic. So you're just on your own. You can survive. I survived. I enjoyed it. But coming back, oh my goodness, Nigerian culture, I'm sure you can understand, where There are events all the time. There's family all the time. When I first came back, it was like exposure therapy. My granddad, it was my granddad's 95th birthday or 97th. I can't even remember. Everybody was around. And that's when I came in, and I came in late. Everybody was inside, and I was like, oh my goodness, I forgot how big the family is. So it was like a lot for me. And then there were back-to-back events where I kept seeing family. Fast forward to 1 year presently, I'm the one that is inviting myself into family events now.
Oh.
I'm the one adding myself into plans. I'm the one saying, why would you guys do this without me? I'm the one partying with my parents. you know
Mhm. Mhm.
So yes, like I do see the beauty of community. I see that sometimes, at least this is my perspective, they may not necessarily understand you. That doesn't mean that they don't love you. You can
Right.
get to a place where you let go of those things that I took personal and find a level ground. It's not with everyone's community, yes, but I seeing my community from eyes of compassion now, because I'm like, wow, I can't believe we went through all of this, and you forgive me and I forgive you. You know, I can't
Yeah.
believe we've balanced things out. I never thought I would get there, but at least one thing I can say as I go, that I learned forgiveness. I learned forgiveness from them. And I'm happy to say that, because forgiveness is a very big thing. And I'm glad that they taught me that, because despite us having division, I was still embraced once I returned. And
Mm.
yeah, I think that really changed my perception of things. It made me think about love and think, okay, maybe I wasn't aware of the love before.
Yeah. It's beautiful because it's almost like we're coming full circle about the individuality and the community, and I think being able to experience both and find yourself authentically in both is very, very wonderful that you were able to do that, that you could find Viv by herself, and then you also find Viv as a part of a community.
Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant,
Thank you
yes.
so much. Yes. And it's a beautiful place to stop. Honestly, wow. Do you know that I've never gone over time? I've never gone over time on my podcast. Like at this
Oh,
point, like once it hits a 1 hour mark, I'm like, okay, this is a good place to stop. But I've just been enjoying the flow. I was
yeah,
thinking to myself that, wow, what are the odds? But I'm not surprised, because, you know, when we were introduced, I'd already had a wonderful time with Deepal. So it was kind of like, I'm sure I'm going to have a great time with Granddaughter Crow, because even when he was bringing up your books, I was like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? And when he offered, I was like, oh wow, you're such a sweetheart. We had such a great time. I'm sure I told you about it. I'm really glad. I'm really glad we met and were introduced.
absolutely. It's just brilliant, and I love that the connectivity of being able to have healed my voice and now have it on your show. It's just another, like, makes me feel like I'm glad I became authentic, not just for me, but for you too, you
Wow.
know?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh my gosh. I'm glad I didn't cry this episode, but I've been close to tears twice. Wow. Wow. I actually don't want to say goodbye, but yeah, we do have to go.
We
So thank
do.
you so much, Granddaughter Crow. I had such a wonderful time. This was such a beautiful conversation. I cannot wait for part two. Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation on remembering, on the soul, on the natural world, authenticity, authentic expression, and you found yourself nodding, wondering, or quietly resonating with what you heard, here's what you can do next. Visit Granddaughter Crow's website, granddaughtercrow.com, to explore her teaching, books, podcasts, and more. Subscribe to her YouTube channel. I'll post the link in the show notes, and follow her on social media. I'll post the link as well, so you don't miss future wisdom drops and live conversations. Now, if something stirred within you, a memory, a question, a yearning, make a small commitment. Pick one insight from today and this episode. Act on it this week. Maybe it's spending time in nature, journaling a question that came up, remembering a memory that just popped from your past, remembering what you loved to do as a child, or simply noticing one limiting belief. And finally, if this episode added value to your journey, please consider sharing it with someone who's walking their own path of transformation and authentic expression. Your share is an invitation to someone else's healing and remembering. Until next time, keep evolving your soul, and may your mind, your spirit, and your ancestry and connection to the natural world all align in service of your fullest self. Thank you and bye.